Before the excavation was ordered by the bench, consisting of 3 members, a magnetic survey was got done, and this magnetic survey was done by a Chinese company under the supervision of the ASI, and they had surveyed every inch of land. The way of surveying was that they had X-rayed by that magnetic machine the entire land. If the X-rays of the magnetic machine would go deep inside the earth and will not come back, then there was nothing underneath the earth. But if they will come back, then the presumption was that it was an example of, it was an indicative of something being there, some rock, some walls, or something of, and the conclusion done by the magnetic survey committee, by magnetic survey team, was that there were examples of temple being there. So the magnetic survey team had drawn a conclusion by submitting about 750 pages report in 2 volumes, and they concluded that there was an evidence, positive evidence of the existence of temple being there. It was a coincidence that I was at that on that date, rather at that juncture. I was the registrar of Allahabad High Court, and I had myself suggested the names of the observer, one Mr. Tej Singh or Tej Prakash Singh. I am not exactly remember the name now. He was the district judge Muradabad. I suggested his name, and he was appointed on being asked by the Honorable Supreme Court, and he went there 3 days before, and he started supervising everything. And on the day of 6th December 1992, I heard the news that the disputed structure was in the process of being demolished by the Ram Sevaks, who had mainly come from outside the state. And I got a call from the Supreme Court, and the exact report was called for, and then in the evening I reported the matter to the Honorable Chief Justice, Justice S.S. Sodhi. He then sent a report to the Honorable Supreme Court of India that the disputed structure had been demolished by a mob which could not be controlled, and the observer Tej Prakash, I am forgetting his exact name, but I knew he was a gentleman, and ultimately he was elevated as a High Court judge also. So he was in, maybe due to tension he developed on account of this unfortunate incident. He was running high fever. I talked to the Commissioner Faizabad, and he conveyed that he is otherwise all right, but under great tension and suffering from high fever. I was more than 100 kilometers away, sitting in my office in the Allahabad High Court. I cannot tell exactly who were the mob, but certainly they were it was a crowd of the huge and large number of people, and presumption could be drawn that they were Hindus. But as it was reported in the newspapers a day after, Then they were the car sevaks who had come from different states, maybe some locals also, but it may be extremely difficult to tell who are those.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
It would be the best thing that if this dispute is solved by a consensus between the two communities, and but it may not be so easy to get it done. And when I was on the bench, even I was of the opinion that there should be a compromise between the two communities, and we had called all the lawyers who were representing different communities in that case, and we suggested that it would be better if a consensus came out. But it was not possible, perhaps for the reason that from both sides the conservative people are there. They would not permit they would not permit any formula to be to get this issue solved. But I think if we want that the coming generations down the lanes, if should be allowed to live at peace, it would be the best way out that this entire land is divided into either two parts or three parts, as has been the verdict, and a solution comes out. That must satisfy both the communities. But actually, what is the hurdle on the way? The hurdle is that the Mohammedan community people say that once a mosque, always a mosque. So they are not prepared to get it partitioned or to get it divided between Hindus and Muslims. On the other hand, Hindus say that before Babur came to India and before the temple was established, it belonged to Hindus. There are hundreds and thousands of evidences, as they say. Lot many statues have been found during excavation work, and they say when it was a temple which lasted for many centuries, and it was renovated by Vikramaditya, who ruled from Kannauj, then it should be given to Hindus. But I think Hindus would be satisfied, and I was even of the opinion the main disputed site is 80 by 40, where the mosque was standing. If this land, along with the land in vicinity, is divided into two parts, one is given to the Muslim community and a good mosque, that is a beautiful mosque, magnificent building with grandeur is constructed, then Muslim community would be satisfied. And likewise, if a good temple, again having the grandeur and the magnificent building is constructed there, then Hindus too will be satisfied. But then some people who do not approve of this idea, because everybody has many brains, many heads, many brains. So those who are not agreeable to this formula of compromise, they say that if the two communities with a mosque and temple would be together, adjoining each other, then again there will be the chances of riots and wars and bitterness. So I don't think it will always happen, because though it is said that history repeats itself again and again, but let us take a positive view. If we can go by a formula, then the people can be at peace. Now the matter is sub judice before the Supreme Court, so to say, to express any other opinion may not be proper on my part.
Yes.
But I think the formula could be evolved, and even Supreme Court judges during hearing of this bench sometimes observed that they try to take out from both the communities whether it could be solved by way of compromise. So let us see
Yes, sir.
how now the hearing takes place and what is the result of the hearing, how the Honorable Supreme Court decides. It will depend upon the Supreme Court's verdict now.